This is a brief overview of TNM staging for oropharyngeal cancers based on AJCC 8th edition. But first, let's review the 7th edition before there was any distinction based on P16 status, as it'll help us understand the newer system better. So tumor category, which largely remains the same in the 8th edition, for the most part stratified based on size. So T1 tumors is anywhere under 2 centimeters and including 2 centimeters. T2 tumors are greater than 2 centimeters and up to and including 4 centimeters, and T3 tumors are greater than 4 centimeters, or involvement of the lingual surface of the epiglottis. T4 tumors are tumors that invade local structures, and the distinction between T4 and T4B in the new edition is eliminated for HPV disease and remains for HPV negative disease. In terms of N classifications, N1 disease is a node 3 centimeters or less on the ipsilateral side. N2 disease is split from N2, N2A, N2B, N2C. N2A is a single node greater than 3 centimeters. N2B are multiple nodes. N2C is involvement of the contralateral side. And N3 disease is a lymph node greater than 6 centimeters in dimension. With the emergence of a relatively recently identified culprit of oropharyngeal squamous, people started noticing differences in trends with that entity. Patients with HPV-associated disease tend to be younger and have minimal smoking history, and most important, they had a better prognosis. So in the new edition of the AJCC staging system, oropharyngeal cancers are stratified based on P16 status. Also interestingly, the clinical staging criteria differs from pathologic staging criteria. These two multi-institutional studies are responsible for that change, with O'Sullivan's paper driving clinical staging and Hoey's paper driving pathologic staging. T category remains the same for the most part, even in clinical and pathologic staging. Again, the only difference is there is no T4A and T4B distinction for P16 positive disease. The big change is in node classification, and we'll review this right now. For clinical staging in P16 negative disease, that really remains the same except for this split in N3. So nodes larger than 6 centimeters are N3A disease, but if there's any extranodal extension identified, that would give it a N3B classification. For HPV positive disease, the only thing that matters is the laterality. So ipsilateral nodes are N1 disease, and contralateral nodes are N2 disease. N3 disease remains the same, 6 centimeters or greater. For pathologic, P16 negative disease is pretty similar to the 7th edition, except that for N2A disease, a small node less than 3 centimeters but with extranodal extension is considered N2A. And for N3 disease, that is also split with a node in the intermediate risk category, for example, greater than 3 centimeter node or multiple node or contralateral node that has ENE. For HPV disease, the stratification is based on number of nodes only. So if there are 4 nodes or less, that's classified as N1 disease. 5 nodes or more, that's N2 disease. And there is no N3 category for P16 pathologic nodal classification. So this is in table format. Just going to leave it here so you can pause and look at it. This is for clinical staging, and this is for path. So let's do a few examples to drive this home. So the first example, on imaging, the primary is a 2 centimeter tumor, and there's a single node 4 centimeters on the ipsilateral side. For HPV positive 2 centimeter, that's a T1, and a node 4 centimeters on the ipsilateral side, that's all that matters. So this is a T1, N1. And for HPV negative, since it's a 4 centimeter node, that will give it an N2A classification. So example number 2, on imaging, the primary is 2 centimeters, and there are 5 to 2.5 nodes on the ipsilateral side. So for HPV positive, this is a T1, and there are 5 nodes on the ipsilateral side. The number does not matter in the clinical staging, just the laterality. So this is T1, N1 again. And for HPV negative disease, since there are multiple nodes, multiple ipsilateral nodes, this is going to be an N2B disease. On imaging, the primary is 2.1 centimeters, and there are multiple 2.5 nodes on the ipsilateral side, and 1 node, 3.4 centimeters, on the contralateral side. So there's a lot happening here. Let's dissect it. For HPV positive, 2.1 centimeters, this is going to give everyone a T2 classification. There are multiple 2 to 2.5 nodes on the ipsilateral side and one node that's large on the contralateral side. So again, the size doesn't matter, the number doesn't matter in clinical staging for HPV, just the side. This is contralateral, this is going to be a T2N2. And for HPV negative disease, the highest risk feature is the contralateral side. This is going to be an N2C disease. Next, on imaging, the primary is 2.1 centimeters, and there are multiple 2 to 2.5 centimeter nodes on the ipsilateral side and 103.4 centimeter on the contralateral side with E&E. So this does not change for HV positive, so this is going to remain T2N2, and for HV negative, this will change because on the contralateral side we have E&E. This is going to be an N3B disease, T2N3B. On imaging, the primary is 2.1 centimeters, and there are multiple 2 to 2.5 centimeter nodes on the ipsilateral side, and one node, which is extra large, 6.1 centimeters on the contralateral side with E&E. Again, a lot happening over here. We have a really large node on the contralateral side with E&E. For HPV positive, we have a T2 contralateral. This is T2N2 again. Wrong, actually. It's a T2N3, right? Because we have an N3 classification for the clinical staging in HPV positive. So 6 centimeters. Again, so it's going to be T2N3. And for HPV negative, since we have E&E, it's going to be the highest possible, N3B. On path, so now we're going to pathologic staging. The primary is 4 centimeters, and there is a single ipsilateral 2 centimeter positive node with E&E. So a 4 centimeter primary, that's a T2, single ipsilateral right away. So if we have a single, this is going to be an N1 disease in HPV positive. But for HPV negative, we have the 2 centimeter positive node with E&E. This is going to be an N2A disease because we have a small E&E. There you go. So path, the primary is 4 centimeters, and there's a single ipsilateral 6.1 centimeter positive node with E&E. So remember, there's no N3 category for pathologic HV, so this 6.1 centimeter is irrelevant. So we have a T2 single ipsilateral, that's going to be T2N1, and look at this huge difference between HV positive and HV negative. So T2N1 for HV positive, and we have a T2N3B. On path, primary is 4 centimeters, again, that's T2. There are 2 ipsilateral positive nodes and 2 contralateral positive nodes. That's altogether 4 nodes for HV positive. So we have, again, T2N1 for HV positive. They're all less than 3 centimeters and no E&E. So this is going to be T2, and again, we have contralateral positive nodes. So that's going to be N2C disease for HV negative. And that is it. I hope this helped.